Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and today we are back getting stuck into the Alfarrari. Alright guys, welcome back. Basically, for those of you who weren't watching last week, I spent the whole time pretty much changing around and mounting up the Toyota electric power steering rack nicely and getting everything to fit just the way I want. And the steering column comes through this sort of shaft area here. It's all looking pretty good. If you want to catch up, I'll put a link up above and you can catch up with where we're up to. And if you're enjoying these videos, please think about subscribing. Basically, I've already spent most of the morning redoing a bunch of things on that steering shaft that I did last week because I just wasn't quite happy with the total clearance. The knuckle on the universal joint was touching the shaft, the shroud on its way through, just sort of scraping. So I've had to rejig a few bits and pieces. I'm much happier now, and let's go down there. I'll show you what it looks like. So now you can see how this all looks with the steering column out of the way. So you can see the mounting place. This is also a mounting point here. That's for the top of the steering shaft. That is for the bottom. We have the access hole on the side here, which goes through for the bolting the shaft onto the end of the column itself. And I had to actually cut out the bottom of this area here, and I've welded in another plate. You can sort of just see it there underneath. Made it all fit, so now I am happy with it. So the next thing I need to do is to go back over to here. And as you saw last week, I welded this tunnel in, the one that I previously made removable, because I couldn't get to the bolt at the back of the tunnel when the heater box is in here. There was no way to be able to do those bolts up, and there was no way I wanted to have to pull the heater box out every single time I needed to drop a gearbox or change the starter motor or whatever. So this gives me plenty of access. I just want to make a lip now all the way around this edge so that my extra piece, which is this piece right here, can bolt into place.
So what I'm doing here is I've made some cardboard templates, running them along the inside edge of my removable panel. So I sort of have the rough shapes that I need. I then take them over to the guillotine with a nice thick sheet of 1.6mm steel, mark out my shapes and start cutting them out. Not sure what happened to the exposure here, but you can see what I'm doing, and I actually just start bending the strips by hand so that they meet up with my removable panel. So I went through with my pneumatic punch and punched a bunch of holes around the edge of where I want to join my flanges and clamp them on, and I can go through now and plug weld the flanges onto the tunnel that's already welded into the car. And now it's in the car, I can just go through and temporarily put it in with some self-tapping screws, which I will replace with captive nuts later.
All right, well that is looking good. I've got my frame in there underneath there. Now I have my removable panel. That's all I need, and the heater box can sit up underneath. So that is all good, and we can move on. Okay, so my next job is to finish off my brake pedal setup. So those watching previously will have seen that I made up this dual master cylinder brake bias setup, and I need to now connect up this arm to the pedal itself. So that's the base of the pedal sticking down. Now I can't use the original arm that connected up to the brake because now this is inset to where this pedal is. So these are not in line. This is not a straight push. So I can't do that. And also the old clevis that was holding this is now pretty much dead. It's got lots of slop in it, lots of play. It's quite old. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make up a rod to join these two bits. Now, the way I'm going to join it up is I'm actually going to use this M10 rod end to connect up these two bars. Some of you will not be happy because I'm going to have it set up as in single shear. For those who don't understand that, basically it's because it's bolted from one side so that it can sort of, under extreme pressures, it could sort of snap through the bolt. This is M10, big M10 bolts. It's more than capable of handling what I'm doing. It's not going to be an issue. I am not concerned about it. Yeah, I've got to connect it up to this M8 down the back here. This M8 is obviously held either side. So I've got to start by measuring between these two. Measure from the completely compressed point to the pedal where it's completely at the floor. So I get a rough measurement of where I need to make it, and then start building an arm.
So here I've drilled out the end of the rod, and I'm using the lathe to tap it, but I'm just turning it all by hand, just so it's nice and slow, in control, but I still get a nice, neat, centered, tapped hole.
Very handy being able to get out on the lathe. So basically I've got a rod. This is massive overkill. This is a solid rod. Solid bar stock that I just had, so it's about the right size. I drilled and tapped it, and then I've got some locking nuts here. I've got my rod ends either end, and that is the right length. So that is a nice, quick, easy bar to try out under the car. I am quite happy with that, and now it all works as intended. So that's one down. Now I've got to do the clutch. All right, so the clutch is set up similar to the way the brake is, but on this one, it's easy enough to use the clevis because it's not an angled push. Using the clevis on an angle is not as easy, but this one, I'm going to, this is the factory clutch push rod. I am going to cut this clevis off, but I'm not happy with the slop in this current clevis. There's a lot of slop and play. It's very loose. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out and square up the hole through the clevis, and then make myself a new pin. I'll just turn up a new pin on the lathe, make it nice and neat and tidy, and then I need to also cut this clevis off and weld it onto a new bar that I then make the right size, because this is too short and the thread is pretty much gone in here and stuff. It's 50 years old, so it's time to upgrade. So let's start drilling and making pins. Alright, so here is the old pin. You can see that it's really sloppy. Here's the new pin. Nice tight fit, very little play, nice and tight. So that's going to do the job nicely. Very nice and simple. Change. I'm going to cut this off now and weld it onto my piece of bar, and then tap it. I just want to make sure I can weld it on nicely and get a nice, good, secure base. Then we can drill and tap the far end and get that all nice and neat and tidy. So I'm just going to face this up now on the lathe, get it nice and flat and square, and then we'll be able to cut this off, weld this on. And painting this yellow has changed everything. Like I have never even come close to leaving this in the chuck since I've painted the key yellow. So good tip, nice and simple, nice and quick, works well. So I've clamped this all in. I've got it nice and square with a square right angle there, and spaced it out with this piece of sheet. There's a piece of sheet underneath the bar, so I've got the bar all nice and straight and square to the end here. I put a nice chamfer on there. So now I'm going to do a couple of tacks, and hopefully we can weld this clevis on nice and straight onto the end of the clutch arm. Alright, so I've got the pedals out of the car now, and like I've been talking about quite a bit previously, you can see that the clutch pedal sits a lot higher than the brake pedal. So that is my next job, is to modify this. So basically what I need to do is cut the pedal off the back and lower it down. Jeff from Racing Jr., who also has his YouTube channel building his Alfa 105, which you should go and have a look at, he actually found the issue with buying new rubbers for the pedals. You can't actually get them over the top of the pedals the way that they are, and he needed to make his pedals bolt on. Looking at his pedals, I'm not sure if they're slightly different, but either way, he actually made up a bracket and bolted them on. I'm going to do that at the last minute if I have to, but for the time being, I'm just going to cut this off and cut the pedal down, weld it on, matched up with the brake pedal so they're all nice and even. That should do the job.
As you can see with the fogged up face mask, it's really hard to see what I'm doing here.
So these are both done now on both sides. I have my push rods, everything's all connected up. I will be building a cover to go over the top of this whole thing, so obviously to protect these rod ends and everything else. It will also protect over this side here. You can see that there's the outlet for the dry sump tank, the oil line that runs across here in front of all this stuff as well. That's all going to be all covered in by a by a panel, just to make it nice and neat and tidy. But I want to leave that until such time as I've got the exhaust. All right, well, we have the pedals done, the steering. Again, I spent a lot of time refining that and getting it all right, getting the steering wheel exactly where I wanted it, and the clearance was all there. Just some of those things that I wasn't quite happy about that I did off camera before I started. I am going to have to adjust these pedals once I actually get the brakes all bled and all the rest of it, because at the moment the pedals are leaning back way too far. The pedals need to sort of stand more upright rather than leaning down towards me. But the travel's good. There were lots of people that were concerned that my toes were going to hit the tunnel. These shoes are much bigger than my regular shoes. They're big steel cap things that I would not wear while I'm driving, and yeah, there's still plenty of space, even with some carpet and stuff in there, to use the pedals. But again, I'm out of time. All this little fabrication stuff takes a lot of work, so I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, by 1950 at Ferrari, the cost of racing was an ever-present issue. So Ferrari decided to build its first road car. The 166 Inter was similar to most cars of the day, where the chassis would be sent to the customer's choice of coach builder for the body to be built. The chassis were based on the 166S race cars using the Colombo V12 engine, but the wheelbase was lengthened. A total of 38 166 Inters were built, mostly bodied by Touring, and they were in the Barchetta or the Coupe design. Vignali built 7 bodies, while Stablamenti Farina, Ghia and Bertoni also bodied some more. Interestingly, Enzo Ferrari famously did not care about the road cars. He considered them a necessary evil to be able to fund the race cars, even though today they are arguably what the brand is most famous for.
All right, it's another one where it feels like I didn't really get a lot done, but it's so much time going through and finishing off all those little details, making it all right. Like I was sort of saying, at the end of last week, I wasn't quite happy the exact placement of the steering wheel, and obviously there was clearance issues and stuff like that, and some of these little things that I could have sort of tried to put off till later, but there is no later. I'm getting to the pointy end of this, and a lot of the big jobs are actually out of the way. There's a few little rust spots that you would have seen in the floors and places, but we're getting there. We are really starting to get together. I mean, I've got the brake and the clutch in now. Accelerator pedal is something I'm going to get back to later. I've ordered something. I mean, it's an electronic throttle that I need for this, so I can't use the original pedal at all. So we'll work on that later. And it's getting there. I am actually feeling quite positive about the movement on this build.
Finally, feels like you say more or less the same thing every time you reiterate this. But the devil was in the detail.
Yes,
the steering wheel needs to be in the right place.
Yes,
otherwise,
it's got to actually feel right when you're actually driving the car. And one of the big issues is when I looked at it, if the steering wheel felt okay, but it wasn't lined up with the gauges. So I actually had to line up. I had to re-center the steering wheel, so it is slightly offset, but that's where the factory steering wheel sits. That's the only way you can see the gauges. Otherwise, if I had it perfect, where...
Yeah, you'd obscure the gauges.
I'd obscure the gauges, and also it would be offset to the gauges, and it would look silly. So, I've got it right now.
That's the quirks of these cars.
That's it. That's what makes old cars so much fun.
Yeah.
so hopefully you're enjoying it anyway.
Please like and subscribe if you haven't. And if you'd like to see the videos a day earlier, you can follow Jeff on Become a Patron. See them with no ads. And you can follow Jeff on Facebook. Obviously I said that. Instagram.
Yes.
Anything else?
I think that'll do for now. All right, guys. See you next time.
By 1950 at Ferrari, the cost of... But the wheel shaft was lengthened. Wheelbase was lengthened. Wheelbase, wheel shaft. Is that right? Yeah. That's verbatim what you wrote.